and I stayed with the military for a few years, 2012. And when I went into the military, I went in for information technology. Um, since departing from the military, I've gotten into cybersecurity, and I've been in that field now for, as I count on my years and being in IT and whatnot, well over 15 years. And I say that because it can be well over that, because at one time I did hold two full-time jobs, one at night and one during the day, uh, to get where I am right now. And at this particular point, what we're trying to do for Black History Month is, some of the great stories like we're going to hear tonight. We want to capture it from, I don't want to say real people, as if someone else has been fake in the past, but it's just simply people we know and we have a connection with. People we can relate to their stories, and we want them to tell those stories without being forced or having to live up to some political agenda. And that's all I have.
Okay. We go next to Mr. Donovan Waddell, just to give a brief, synopsis of who you are and what you're doing and how we come about this.
Well, my name is Donovan Grant Waddell. I am a South Carolina native, graduate of Clemson, and these two fellas here, Perry and Tremaine, are my fraternity brothers, my chapter brothers. Love these guys to death. They introduced me to the bond there at Clemson. I actually jumped into a little group chapter link just to fellowship with some brothers, man. I had no clue what it was, to be honest with you. But in the spirit of everybody carrying their load, they asked me would I do something, and I said yes, I would. So I'm here to do hopefully justice to your introduction, and I'm looking forward to being able to gain something from this dialogue.
All right. Now, Mr. Kenneth Brown, you can go ahead and do yours, and we'll go to Samuel, and then I'll go last, and then we'll have the introduction of Dr. Lynn.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. Do appreciate it. Again, my name is Kenneth Brown. My family originally hails from East Orange, New Jersey. I'm a graduate of Tennessee State University, where I pledged Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. I am a military associate in terms of serving time for my country and military intelligence. And I spent
Sorry, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, can you speak up a little bit? You sound a little muffled.
How about now?
That's a little bit better.
Okay, let's try that. All right, how about now?
That's better.
Perfect. I don't know what you did or did not catch, but graduate of Tennessee State University. I pledged Phi Beta Sigma at that illustrious school. I went on to spend time in the United States military as military intelligence, and I spent the bulk of my career in 911 communications up until about the last 2 to 3 years. And I'm now in private enterprise. And I was asked by Samuel to be a part of this forum, and I'm pleased to be in the company of good brethren, Greek brethren. And thank you so much for the opportunity for me to participate.
Yes, Sam.
Hey, what's up, buddy? How's everybody tonight?
Everybody's good. I am good.
That's good. That's good.
Sam, do your intro. Tell them who you are, your business.
Hey, well, everybody know, my name is Sam Pugh. A lot of people know me as Mass. I have a TV show that's airs on Fox 57 every Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. Where we do music. I have different artists perform, shoot their music videos, and we do music. That's what we do. We do all type of talent.
All right. Okay. All right. My name is Peter Bradley. Another, we got one more. We got the artist coming in. Hold on. There he is. Wait for him to come on. Uh-oh. But I'm gonna go anyway. Just go ahead and give you who I am. Another alumni of Clemson University, brother of fraternity of Kappa Alpha Psi. And you know, Divine Nine is awesome. So, Brother Brown, thank you for being here. And you know, we respect. We got a Sigma in the house, guys. But
Thank you.
we're doing this. I have a nonprofit. After school, I went and worked at Milliken for a while and made my way into the nonprofit sector. So I started an organization 10 years ago called Building Better Communities. And we were geared towards fighting gun violence and helping to empower our community. But in the process of doing that, I found that in order to fight gun violence, you have to find solutions to a lot of problems in our Black community that deals with poverty, education, a whole bunch of different things. So now what we do is we're empowering our communities in different forms so that we can still address gun violence, but we're now educating them on how to vote. We're educating them on trying to get higher education, trying to teach them financial literacy, teach what do you call it? We're teaching, I'm gonna say home economics, more so life skill courses for our communities. And, you know, we've been blessed in the last year to actually open up our second community resource center. So it's been a blessing. Brothers like Dr. Lynn who give to our organization help make it so that we can provide laptops and computers and study areas, and we can provide the resources that they need. We also educate our parents and how they can do better with their finances, child raising, just home, like I said, home economics, something that's just missing in the Black community. So this show today is one of 4 that we put together, and I got with Sam about actually doing this because I know that he didn't really talk about it, but he's very strong in the community, and he does a lot of stuff in the community to help empower our community by giving our young men and women that break to get their videos seen, to express themselves through music. I see one of his artists, Sam Goody, is on. He's not, I don't see his picture yet, but I see him on here, but we should see a video from him later on. So without further ado, I want to introduce the man of the hour, Dr. Lewis Lynn. He started is ENVIRO AgScience, correct?
Right.
Yes, sir. That was in 1985. In his 30-year history, the company has completed a number of showcase projects in both landscaping and construction. ENVIRO's projects include impressive array of both government and private work, including the Columbia Convention Center, the University of South Carolina Colonial Center, Spirit Communications Park. If anybody don't know what that is, that's the baseball field here in Columbia, BMW manufacturing plant, Atlanta City Hall, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Fort Jackson Soldier Support Center, Shaw Air Force Base Fitness Center, Camp, and I hope I get this right, Lejeune Camp Lejeune for the Marine Corps, Detention Center, Mess Hall, Johnson Controls, Flora and Savannah River Nuclear Site. And this resume of projects has established ENVIRO AgScience as the largest African-American owned landscape and construction firm in South Carolina. One of the biggest things I want to talk about is the fact that Dr. Lynn graduated from Clemson back in the 70s. And his experiences is growing up in South Carolina is what we're here to talk about today. So from the title, American History Told from the Black Experience, I want to introduce everyone to Dr. Lewis Lynn.
Thank you, Perry. First, I'll say, giving honor to my Lord, Jesus the Christ. It's good to be here. And I'm glad that your generation is allowing folks to share some oral history. My family has even decided we need to get some oral history. But I'm going to start out with a summary and I'm going to talk about my life from childhood to college to corporate to my company to civic to now a senior citizen. So let me start with a summary. of all that I've learned through all of these. One is, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And I'm telling you something I know, not something I heard. And then the golden rule I've learned, and you guys are all entrepreneurs, the golden rule, and you've probably heard it, he who has the gold rules. And I've seen that in all these sectors. I grew up in the 60s and 50s and 60s, and that was the we shall overcome era. And what's going on now, and to me appears to be that this too shall pass, but there's still strife and struggle for us. So in my childhood, I grew up in the PD in a little town called Lamar, South Carolina. And actually, I tell my friends when I left Lamar, I tore off the rearview mirror. But it was a small town. The schools were still integrated. I went to the black school in town, and I still remember. None of you remember. I still remember when there were colored bathrooms. They used the word colored. There were colored bathroom signs. There were colored public water fountains. We had to go to the rear door to get food. And I could even remember walking down streets and older black men were saying, "Boy, don't you stare at white women in the eye, don't you look at them too hard." And it was just, it was a way of life for my generation. And each race tended to kind of stay in their own corners because, and as I told Perry, I went to church in Bishopville. I heard a kid, is that a kid? My grandpa gene kicks in every time I hear a kid. So
You did. I apologize. That's my son in the background. I just had to get the daddy. You see me trying to, hey, be quiet, boy. I got it.
The grandpa kicks in. I see somebody new joined you, Perry.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, so I can remember, and I don't know if any of you would have seen this. We would go to Ebenezer Church that we're talking about, and I can remember riding to Bishopville, going to Ebenezer Church, and my dad would, "You kids get down," because there'd be between Hartsville and Bishopville, there would be a Klan rally with a cross burning, and I still remember as a child seeing that. And I went to, even though the schools were segregated, we all worked on the same farm. So many of the kids that we couldn't go to school with, we played basketball, football with, and my generation, there was a guy named Tommy Suggs, if any of you went to University of South Carolina. And we all think we made him a good quarterback because we'd have killed him if we could have caught him in the cow pasture playing football. But we all played together. My dad was a sharecropper, and he grew cotton, tobacco, etc. And finally, he decided that he was going to purchase his own farm. And he was a sharecropper for the father of Governor David Beasley. I don't know if any of you guys remember Governor Beasley.
Yes.
And so when Dad decided to purchase his farm, as fate would have it, one of Governor Beasley's brothers ran a bank, and he loaned my daddy money to stop sharecropping for his daddy and start his own farm. And I wanted it, and so we were in agricultural communities, and I wanted to be a county agent. In that little town of Lamar, and I was in 4-H club, and they didn't have FFA, Future Farmers of America. It was NFA, Negro Farmers of America. But I was determined I was going to be a county agent. And that little town of Lamar, it gave me roots, and it gave. So let's go to. There were civil rights. I was in the era of civil rights. I saw Harvey Gantt. I remember watching black and white TV when Harvey Gantt went to Clemson, and I remember telling my dad, Dad, I want to be a county agent, and I wanted to be just like Harvey Gantt. Now, really, I kind of want to go to South Carolina State because I like the band. But good news from Clemson, the agriculture community gave me a scholarship from the South Carolina Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association. And Perry mentioned, I've been on the board of trustees at Clemson for 33 years. And I tell parents all the time, follow the money. Well, my dad kind of invented that because I wanted to go to be on the March in 101, but I had a scholarship to Clemson, and Dad said, follow the money. And I give that advice to parents now. Some of you may have kids that are soon going to be college age. But in my experience coming to Clemson, I don't know about you guys that went to Clemson, it was similar to Harvey Gantt's. They were kind of friendly, kind of welcoming, mostly curious. And there were 12 of us. I was in the second freshman class. that came to Clemson. So Harvey didn't start as a freshman. So I was in the second freshman class. And there were about a dozen of us. And and it was my time, just like this is going on now. There were some tough times during the time I went to Clemson. First, it was the troubled times in society. I went to Clemson in '67. The people were still reeling from the Watts riots in California in '65. '63, Kennedy had gotten assassinated. And so I go to Clemson, and just before Harvey comes, George Wallace stood in the door of the University of Alabama trying to prevent Black folks from going to the University of Alabama. So all that's going on, and it was, also there was the Vietnam War was going on. So there was two protests. There was the racial protest, and there was the anti-war protests, and very often did they collide. But when I went to Clemson, so we're the Black kids at Clemson having to deal and participate in the racial protests, also having to deal with the war protests. And Clemson was a military school. And when I went, we had to participate in ROTC unless you were blind, crippled, or crazy. You had to be in ROTC. So, and there was a benefit so I was in ROTC, and I heard some of you talk about the military. I have to give Clemson and ROTC in Vietnam. I'll tell you what that did for me. But I just want you to know that there were troubled times just like now. The protests of the war and the social justice protests, we called them the equal, as I said, it was, well, we shall overcome. And now I'm hoping that this too shall pass. So I go to Clemson, and back then there was a draft lottery for Vietnam. And there were folks who were draft dodgers, and I was not gonna be a draft dodger. I was, and you could get deferrals if you were the only child or if you had good grades. Well, I had good grades. And so I got commissioned in 1970, and the Vietnam was winding down. And there was, have any of you ever seen the movie Rambo? There was a whole series of Rambo. And I I wanted to be an airborne ranger. I wanted to live a life of danger. And so I get commissioned, and the Vietnam War, I remember, did any of you guys participate in ROTC at Clemson? I said, no. Well, we had.
Actually, I did.
You did.
I got a complete contrast to where you're going, though.
Okay.
Absolutely,
Well,
I'm enjoying it.
So I got commissioned, and the war was winding down, and they said, we don't need lieutenants. And there was a guy named Colonel Mertens who said, Lynn, you got that commission, you got them bars on your shoulder, but we don't need lieutenants. Go to school, stay in school. So I stayed in Clemson and got a master's degree. And I got the master's and the PhD, master's and the MS degree and the BS degree in 5 years, 3.5 of one and a year and a half of the master's degree, all in horticulture. So I spent a lot of time in the PSA building. And then when I got my master's degree, I was ready to go. I was really ready to go then. And I went into the Chemical Corps, which no longer exists. The Chemical Corps out of Vietnam, the Agent Orange and all. I went to Fort McClellan, Alabama, and learned to be a chemical officer, and they eliminated that corps. So I ended up my reserve career as an ordnance officer. So here's where Clemson benefited me. So I got a master's degree. They still don't need lieutenants. And the professor of military science says, Lynn, why don't you go on and get a doctorate degree? Because you guys have been complaining about Black professors. Get a doctorate degree and come back and be a professor. Well, I did, I got a graduate scholarship to go to University of Maryland, and I got my PhD in horticulture again, and in chemicals. So the match was I've been in the Army on chemical control, Agent Orange. So I studied weed control, agricultural chemicals. And so thanks to the Vietnam War and thanks to Clemson and Colonel Mertens, that's why I have a PhD today. So I give Clemson a shout out for that. It's a sign of the times. I would not have had a PhD if it hadn't been for the war, or if it hadn't been for Colonel Mertens telling me to go and get the education. Now, when I was at Clemson, we had a motto we didn't have, I heard all you guys talking about the fraternities. We didn't have fraternities that looked like us. But we had something, I think one of the fraternities, is it your fraternity? Well, our motto was reach one, teach one, and don't mess it up for the folks who follow. So if you're in animal science, if you're in engineering, don't mess it up for the folks who follow. The reach one, teach one, which fraternity is that? Okay, well, I think that's the current fraternity code. And at Clemson, there were 12 of us, and we all were in different majors. There were 2 of us in agriculture, some engineers, but we met every day at Johnston, I guess the cafeteria at Johnston Hall, and we had something called the Black Table. And every day we would all meet around the same time and eat at the Black Table. I see the brother saying something about that down there.
Yeah, that was still there when we were there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's where we would all get together. And so the 12 of us, I remember Jim Bossick was the first at PhD. I remember the first guy commissioned our RTC, but that was all because we all said, don't mess it up for the folks who are coming after us. So the Clemson and the education part led to corporate. So I had a PhD in horticulture in 1975 in agriculture. And I remember my high school teachers like, why you major in agriculture? Most Black folks trying to get away from farming, and you studying farming. And but again, I wanted to be a county agent, but I was kind of a unicorn. Here I am, a Black man with a PhD in agricultural chemicals, and a company called Eli Lilly that made pharmaceuticals also made agricultural chemicals. And they recruited me to take my horticultural PhD and work on fruit and vegetable pesticides. And back then, research was done with checkbooks. You'd go to a university like Clemson, and you'd say, I'm going to give you a $10,000 or $40,000 grant to study my product on apples. Well, in the Midwest, I got assigned as the research scientist for Michigan State, Ohio State, Purdue, and the University of Kentucky. So that kind of gave me my street creds because I was dealing with high profile schools in the Midwest. And I even published some papers with them. So it was a unintended blessing, but as a Black scientist working at these Midwest corn universities, I got credibility as a scientist, and then along came Monsanto after about 4 years, and they heard about me and they recruited me. They were developing a product called Roundup, and most of you have probably heard of Roundup, and particularly now Roundup has a bad reputation. I have a daughter who's a pharmacist now, and she keeps saying, well, Dad, you worked on that Roundup, and I kind of remind her, and who paid for that pharmacy degree? I think it was Roundup. But anyway, so I worked on Roundup, and they were developing me as a middle manager. Again, there weren't that many Black folks in corporate. So I did 1 and 2 years stints. I was in St. Louis, then I was in Syracuse, New York for 2 years. Then I went to Denver for 2 years, back to St. Louis for a year, to Columbia for a year, to Atlanta for a year. And then they offered me a job in Japan. And I thought Lamar to Japan, a little bit far. And so I turned that job down, and they moved me back to St. Louis. And then they asked me to go to Minot, North Dakota. And I thought, no. In fact, the joke was, why not Minot? Reasons freezing. And so that kind of stifled, and as you guys are in that stage of career, that stifled my career with them, because like, hey, we've been developing you for these jobs and you turned it down. But I wanted to do what was best for me and my family. I married my childhood sweetheart from Lamar, and we've been married now for 47 years. So, but the things in corporate America taught me something that you guys probably seeing now too. Corporate America taught me my diplomacy skills. And let me define my definition of diplomacy: thinking twice before saying nothing. And another sign of diplomacy is you don't insult the alligator till you're on the other side of the lagoon. And so and the other thing I learned in corporate, where there were a lot of incompetent people who had good jobs. I used to say, and even now as I work with corporate partners, all those jobs you named, I I didn't build the convention center by myself. I didn't build BMW. I was partnered with other companies. And I see these corporations we partner with, and I tell them, many times I tell them, some people who complain that they are not paid what they're worth, they ought to be glad. They're probably overpaid. And you probably see those guys in your work. So then let me go to my company. So the corporate experience, when I left Monsanto, and people still do it, I got a good, they gave me a buyout, something they call a golden handshake or golden parachute. And they paid me 1 month for each year I'd been with them. And I'd been with them for 14 years. So I took that money and started my own business in 1985. Now here's the racial side of it. I named the company, because I was in agricultural chemicals, I named the company ENVIRO AgScience. And I was at, I think, Shaw Air Force Base. And I was with a minority contract officer, and he said, that name is going to cause, you're going to give your proposals to somebody, and they're going to see the name Ebony, and they're either going to throw it in the trash or they're going to have a building bias. And so that same year, I changed the name to ENVIRO AgScience. And I think some of that same bias now, I've seen over the years. My company's 35 years, 36 years old now, going into 36 years, that's the same kind of prejudice folks had with hairstyles. But the name, that name bias, the person, a brother told me, change that name. Now, as I developed my company, my employment motto to my employees was, if I do good, you do good. And then those that complain, I remind them that you get paid for it before I get paid. And I still, even with my children in the business now, I think it probably doesn't fit your generation, but I remind them all the time that I may not be right all the time, but I'm the boss all the time. And so that's probably not good management style nowadays. But I've had a number of employees who retired with us, and we've enjoyed a good run, and we're still there. My daughters are taking over the business. Now, this entrepreneur thing in me, and all of you guys sound like you have an entrepreneur stream. My grandpa ran a local grocery store, and we would go and we would go help him. I'd say it was a corner store, and we would go, and he kept the books so families could come in and get meat and veggies and canned goods, and they pay him when they got paid. When my dad purchased a farm, he decided that he would open a butcher shop, a slaughterhouse, and we were the first Black-owned meat plant. And Dad, we slaughtered hogs and cows and made sausage, etc. And we sold it to the store at Piggly Wiggly's, Shaw Air Force Base, Fort Jackson. And again, there's where society helped. Senator Strong Thurmond made Fort Jackson and Shaw buy sausage from my dad. I had another grandpa who owned a farm in Darlington, and I worked with him because he had tractors and didn't have mules. So I could help Grandpa Evans because I didn't have to follow the north end of a southbound mule. I had another uncle who had a garage, and he decided I didn't have mechanical skills, but so I was the toter and busy work person when I went to work with Uncle Louis. I had another uncle who had a store like Grandpa's, and I had an aunt who was a big Tupperware fan. And I say all that to say that I think we all have I have an entrepreneurial gene. You know, my family, this is stuff I heard around the dinner table, talking about entrepreneurship. And, but on top of that, I had a praying mama. And all of us brothers, if, you know, there's a woman in our life, typically mama, grandmama, wife now, that prays for us. And Grandpa told me something about get rich. And when I started my business, and Grandpa told me to watch for get rich quick schemes. And I should have brought an illustration along. Grandpa back then pulled out a $20 bill. And he says, people are going to tell you, boy, you can double this money. And he said, let me show you how to double. He folded and put it back in his pocket. He just double, keep it in your pocket. So my company, we never played the race card because it was obvious when I walked in the room, you know, I was a Black guy, So I never played, but I knew I needed to be the best at what we did. And so everything I did, I because I had a PhD in it, it's kind of like that for my customers. Well, the PhD is free, guys, and we did. So here I was with a PhD with a grass cutting company, but I never played the race card. And when I tell folks, also like you guys, many of you guys, I'm a big Clemson guy, but orange, it ain't my favorite color. Green's my favorite color. So we started, but we found that the local community, Columbia community, the state of South Carolina, really helped my company. They coddled me, they helped me, they encouraged me, they hired my firm. And some of those projects that Perry mentioned, if you drive down Main Street of Columbia, those are our trees. If you go to Fort Jackson, the entrances, the BMW plant. I remember landscaping the USC basketball arena, and they were, and I planted the back side of it with orange daylilies. And one of my employees told us, and they made us take them out. I figured they'd bloom when I was gone, but they made us take them out before they got to bloom. We've worked at every military base. I think we've worked at Fort Jackson, Shaw Air Force Base, Camp Lejeune, Fort Bragg, Fort Stewart, Fort Gordon, and we've also worked on prisons, and we did the Charleston Detention Center. We've done a lot of work at Atlanta Airport, and mainly because it's folks like, I always leverage one project to the next. If I've worked on a prison at Camp Lejeune, I can surely do one in Charleston, South Carolina. But I always chose partners, and I'm always careful about partners. When I partner with guys, if I'm going to partner with a large company, I make sure that I have some control of the checkbooks. Having control of the money makes bad actors act a lot better. So I always made sure that we were in joint financial agreements. And then there was the thing that really helped my company was the set aside program, the SBA 8A program. And for several years, we were in the $30 to $35 million range, and we were in the Black Enterprise 100 firms. And we were the National Small Business of the Year in South Carolina, fastest growing. But all of those things I wanted to do, not for the accolades, but for folks to see that, hey, some Black folks can do this too. So Black folks can be the fastest growing company. Black folks can be the Small Business of the Year of the state. And so, again, almost like from Clemson, it's like, don't ruin it for those who are following you. So then let me talk about civic. And this is the part I really want all you guys to take home, is that when business started doing well, somebody and get yourself a mentor. I'll talk a little bit more about mentors, but my mentor at the time told me, he says, now your company's doing well, son. If you're gonna feed from the public trough, you've got to pay your civic rent. And I said, what does that mean? He says, you give back to the community that's giving to you. So I gave of my time and talent and treasures to my community. And that's sitting on boards and commissions and giving to United Way funds. And boards ended up being the thing that I really wanted to do. But because another thing I've seen, and you'll all relate to this on boards, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. And I've been on national corporate boards. I've been on, and having a seat at the table is important, not just for you, but for people who look like you, act like you, and of like mind. And so, and I've added faith to my corporate service. I was 60 years old. I'm 72 now, and I was 60 years old, not quite 60, that I went to seminary at CIU in a program called Marketplace Ministry. And they just said, when you finish this program, we don't ever want to see you in the pulpit. Your congregation is the streets of Atlanta, the streets of Chicago, the streets of Columbia. And what I do, I do prayers at most of the boards I'm on. When I won the National Small Business, I prayed at the White House. When we dedicated the prison, and I did the Clemson, Carolina prayer several years. I did it 3 years. We won 2 of the 3 years. And I just told the folks that I wasn't going to be praying about winning and losing. I'm going to pray for the benefit of our students and the fans. Board service, and that's really one thing I want to emphasize with you guys. Get on paying boards. I've served and paying boards. I didn't know much about that till I was in my 50s, but paying boards, and now is the time. Boards. I just retired from a bank board, and it paid $250,000 a year. It paid $236 a year, and so they're looking for folks to bring. And now it's even more. It's more important that folks that look like us are on those boards. But before I got on those boards, I served on civic boards. I served on the Commission of Higher Education board twice, State Workforce Board, and I serve on Mark Morrell's National Labor League board. And what board service does, again, it gives you a seat at the table, and it gives you a chance to lift other folks to those seats. And I said earlier, and I didn't talk about it more, find yourself a mentor to get you on these boards, and also it helps with business. And now, since I'm an old guy who's a mentor tag, I'll just tell you what, if you want to run your mentor away, there's two things you can do that will run your mentor off. Be too needy or be too greedy. I don't need to explain that. But my generation mentors they run from that. And I'm not in politics. And folks have asked, why have you been in politics? And I'm a business person. And I told them, and I tell folks now, I want to be the king maker, not the king. I'll have access to the king. So all my career, I've worked at being the king maker. In fact, I watched today, my friend, Steve Benjamin is stepping down from politics. And I did Steve's original inaugural prayer, but he's one that I kind of like, let's put good public servants out there and work with them. And then in the university, I worry about teaching without adding morals. And I tell them all the time at Clemson, and as I said, I'm now the senior member of the board, and I tell them all the time to educate a man in knowledge alone without teaching him morals is but to create a menace to society. Those guys who steal a penny or two off of every bank account, those guys who take shortcut on bridges that fall down. So you've got to add morals, and the penalty for that good men pay for indifference to public affairs and immorality is to be ruled by evil men. We need to, as a university, as young business folks like you are, we need to make people ready for the future. We need to make people who look like us ready for the future. Some life lessons, I call them adages. I'm going to publish a book sometimes. I'm working now on, and I'm calling it, it started out as Adages by Lynn, but the title of the book is going to be Country Boy Wisdom. Just like some things just don't need an explanation. And here's I'll just share some with you. It's better to give than to lend, and it costs about the same thing. Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. Bad company corrupts good morals. That's kind of birds of a feather flock together. Right actions only flow from right hearts. Because the folks who get locked up for dishonesty. And the best way to win an argument is to be right in the beginning. Now, for all of you guys are young guys, and I can just say, looking at the pictures I see on the screen, that all of your life has been but a time of preparation for this season of your life. When I was your age, the remainder of my life, the remainder of your life, it will be a measure upon the basis of what you do now. Each of you have been given duties from the entertainment world, from the business world, but the Lord has provisioned you for promise, for performance. Do good work and for your community and your fellow man. And I found out, particularly now, I can look back and see that the service you do doesn't establish your choice as much as confirms your choices. Onlookers and people around they can't see your choosing, but they can comprehend what you stand for about what you do. Now, as a businessman, I'm going to close here. As a businessman, I know that as a leader of my company, I'm charged with the privilege and obligation to go first. And I get it. the most powerful way to lead is by example. You can only lead others as far as you're willing to go. And that's what I do in my company. I want my family, my employees, my community to see the benefit of my company. Since starting my business in '85, God has and still does test me and bless me. You know that money is both a test and a trust. I've concluded that the metric by which my life and by which your life will be assessed, it won't be in dollars and cents. It'll be by the individuals whose lives you've touched. Because through our businesses, through your businesses, your companies, I'm often used to deliver a job, a paycheck, a word of encouragement, or a blessing to others. And I've come to realize that people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Each of us has a gift, a talent, a means, a heart to contribute to the greater good of our local and global community. So next time you're asked to be a volunteer, to run for an office, to serve on a board, to do a special task, to help someone else, just say to yourselves, here am I, send me. Make it so, Lord. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
So now what we're going to do is, I don't know if Sam has it queued up, but are you able to do the video now or?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to play the video on the show.
Okay.
So I edit that in.
Okay. Sam, how are you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
All right. Well, now you want to give the audience a little bit of history about who you are?
Yes, I'm Samuel Odie. My stage name is Sam Goody. I'm a Christian rapper. Like he was just talking about, I just chose to use my talents to push people towards Christ. The whole goal of the music was to inspire my generation to look for something other than themselves or what they've been seeing taught by our culture, and try to push them towards Christ and to show them, like, even at the age you are, you can still pursue Christ, and without a purpose, you're gonna be out here lost, which we're seeing today. So the whole goal for me to rap was just to push people towards Christ.
Okay, awesome. And I just
Do you have
want
any records? You have some records on the shelf, Sam?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
he's
Yes, sir.
gonna
I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play it. It's gonna be on the show. Oh.
Okay.
And the song is called Higher, and it's just pushing. It's just talking about, like, without God, you only could go but so far, but He can take you higher.
Okay.
Shemaine, you raise your hand.
Yes, this is for Dr. Lynn. A kind of a nostalgic moment, and my wife is going crazy. It seems as though you were roommates with my father-in-law, Thomas Wright. He was an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tom
so
was-
she
yeah.
really wanted me to mention that.
Tom was an engineer and I was an Aggie, so I'd go to the P&A building and he'd go wherever your engineers go.
We go to the opposite direction.
Yeah,
That's the way I
right.
felt when I was there. We used to eat lunch together or dinner or whatever, and we'd be off to class, and I'd be the only one still walking, and everybody else veered off for the engineering buildings.
Yep. Great. Well, tell Tom I said hello.
He's since passed, but
I'm sorry.
I'm sure
I didn't even know that.
I'm sure he's listening. Yes.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Lynn, I first want to say thank you. That was an excellent presentation you gave. And I'm now that I found my mentor, so I'll be giving you a call.
All right. Too needy, too greedy?
Hey, I'm not needy or greedy. I just want to
Slide that number over. That phone number too.
But
Yeah.
basically what I want to talk about now while we got the fellas here is you talked about the protests back when you were in school, and you see now we have the BLM protests. How are they similar and how are they different?
Even here, I'm in Atlanta as we speak. I have a second home in near Stone Mountain because my daughters are here, and as a senior citizen, I want to be close to my daughters. But at the protests during my times, it was all us. But I drive through Alpharetta, and I see almost all white kids. But most of the protests are mixed now. There's some white sympathizers, but when our protest was us. And I remember where they sick dogs. The dog never caught me. I'm a country boy, so they never caught me. But the difference was they were not multiracial. It was all black folks. And then the Vietnam War, the Vietnam protests I talked about, it was almost all white folks. So there were common causes, but they were typically black and white.
Okay. And I know that we have, whenever I do my research, it seems like we have all the same problems that you had coming up, except for the colored bathrooms. But I mean, we're faced with the same educational disparities, the economic failures and shortfalls in the Black community. What do you see as a way of how did you overcome those back then? And how can the kids today kind of, well, I'm gonna say young adults, overcome them now?
It's one is hard work, and for sure, don't play the race card. You know, you just got to be really good. I didn't play I was a good horticulturist. I was a good researcher. So let's all like to let your gun speak for you. You're all obviously very good at what you do. They know you're Black when you walk in the room. Are they now that they Googled you, so they kind of know who you are when you walk in the room. So just be very good at what you do. And I talked about the awards my company's won. Apply for awards and recognition. It's kind of, you know, and let somebody else toot your horn. So for a while, I had a marketing person. All they did was apply for various awards and recognition, and then for certifications that companies and businesses can get, put those on your resume. That gives you building credibility. Somebody else has done that. So we applied for every award. We applied for every certification that we could, because that gave you credibility that other folks couldn't give you. One of mine that I'm proud of. We have a nuclear clearance. We at Savannah River site, and I cut grass. But I tell folks that, you know, in some places we cut grass at Savannah River site, they follow us around with machine guns. So I said, I'm a pretty good grass cutter. They follow us around with machine guns at Savannah River site. So, but I've got that nuclear certification, and I never needed for cutting grass, but we got the certification.
Awesome.
I have a question for you, Dr. Lynn. Well, you talked a lot about the boards and the awards and whatnot. But I guess what I really want to focus on is more of what were your activities, I guess, when you kind of first got to Clemson, your second year. You guys just played like on campus? Did you go off campus? Did you have any experience off campus? Or were you guys pretty much, you know, hey, don't go off campus, let's stay where we're supposed to be?
Well, I was on Tiger Band. I remember I wanted to go to South Carolina State to be on the band, so I was on Tiger Band. So there were two of us, two Black guys on Tiger Band. So I did a lot with, but we hung. They gave us near the fraternity row. They gave us a old tool shed, and we called it the Black House. I think it's closed now. It's in the curve by the football stadium. And we go to the Black House, and only a few of us had cars, and I remember if we could, we would get in our cars and we came to Atlanta. They'd laugh at us because we were country boys coming to Atlanta to go to Spelman or something. But Winthrop and South Carolina State, and my childhood sweetheart was Morris College. So, but we tended to stay together as a group and do things. We played football. I mean, we played. Everybody thought they were Dr. J, and we played basketball. Even Tom thought he was a good basketball player. So your father-in-law. But we kind of hung together. But some of my lifelong friends are not Black guys. My roadies for football game are guys that happen to be Aggies I'm in my 70s, and some of my lifelong friends are white guys that I went to Clemson with.
Okay.
And you guys probably have some friends that are.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
a lot.
I mean, going to Clemson, I mean, you got no choice, really. You meet a lot of good white men and women there.
Yeah.
Now, I got a question for Sam. What's your motivation? You know, coming up in this era with so much going on, what's your motivation right now for your music?
Well, you know, it's just a good.
I'm sorry, I meant Sam Goody. I'm sorry. The artist.
Okay. Sam Goody. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey.
it's really tried to like just change the narrative, like about what we see. Like if you follow the hip hop culture and rap culture, it's kind of one-sided. It's like showing the youth one thing that might not even be healthy for them. So all the people even my own age, we're very influenced by the culture. It's very influencing, and it's a lot of like gang culture or hustling culture. It's very one-sided. So my goal is just to push people towards something more positive, which I believe is like with Christ, like getting saved, living a life of morals, like Mr. Lynn was talking about, like treating people right. So that's the goal, is just to change the narrative of what people think they have to do or what they see is like, that's all I can do. That's what I'm gonna inspire. I try to inspire people to something different.
Okay. Mr. Pugh, your reasoning for the show is what? What's your motivation for the show?
I just love giving people in our community opportunity to get their music out there and let them be heard, you know? It's a good feeling to work with these artists in this community, you know?
Any more questions we have for anyone? I know I'm looking at Facebook and they love the concept of what we're doing, but they don't have any real questions. I guess it's mostly been answered. So is there anything before we close out that any of you guys want to talk about?
I'd like to thank you, Dr. Lynn, for the inspiration that you gave me, simply because you learn sometimes as you go. As much knowledge as you may have going into a business, you really don't learn about the business and the people around you until you're working the business. And so with that, it's inspiring to see a man as yourself with the caliber and the caliber of men that I'm actually in this room with. Is the fact that we're trying to make a difference in our community. And I've always had the concept of giving back to my community in some form or fashion. As a local preacher at my local church, I have a responsibility to people. That's why that mantle was given to me. So I want to thank you, Dr. Lynn, and mentorship is important. So I will be calling upon you as well.
All right.
Simply because it's important. It's important to have someone that you can look to, turn to, and say, what do you think about this? Or is there a better way of doing it? There's always a better way of doing something, but it's an inspiration. For Sam Pugh, I want to thank him for giving me an opportunity to be at this forum. And for Sam Goody, listen, I get it. I definitely understand it. You have to push people in their own way towards seeing the better good of another individual, not necessarily through violence. Because Dr. King, as you all know, marched in your era, Dr. Lynn, with a non-violent protest. However, his opposite, Malcolm X, had that, I should say, vigilant, maybe even a vigilante type, but even he succumbed to it in understanding how we can be better Black men. So thank you, gentlemen. I do appreciate it.
Let me add on that my generation, as I said, I'm 72 years old. My generation, your dads, Black men and women are looking for somebody to pass the torch. And we came along on the shoulders of the Martin Luther Kings. And so we've been the shoulders. I want to be comfortable that when we pass the torch, your generation has it. But that kid I heard in the background, they need to have it too. So we're concerned, my generation's concerned that when we pass the torch, that we don't take a step back, and that our grandkids, your kids, get to enjoy life, and life well lived.
That's one of the good things I can say about these brothers. I know them personally, and I mean, you know, what they instill in their children and their kids, I think is awesome.
Yeah, and I know you said never play the race card, Dr. Lynn, but I think it's very important that we educate ourselves on who we truly are. We didn't start as slaves, and we won't end as slaves. So I've tried to do that with all my children. But to your point, I had my oldest two a couple of years ago trying to watch a PBS special on the Black Panther Party, Vanguard of the Revolution. I couldn't wait to show it to him. I was so excited. And my oldest daughter, she kind of just wanted to watch it because Dad was watching it. But my son, he was like, oh, man. But certainly, we are trying to prepare our children the way that we should. And we certainly appreciate all the gems that you dropped. One question I will ask is, do you have any leads on those boards that pay maybe half of what you were talking about?
And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna send it to you, Perry, but they're treated like you're looking for a job. They're companies that actually place people on. Just treat it like you're treating a job.
Okay.
And when I did it, I had to know somebody who knew somebody, but now I know I've got several folks that they have a company that they're looking for board placement, and they aren't all going to start at $250,000 jobs, but there are a lot of six-figure boards out there.
Okay.
And the worst way to get on one of those boards is say, I'm looking for a paying board job. I'm looking to serve on a public board is the way, because you can serve on people who take all the free time. My wife still laughs. I've served when I got on that board for $250,000 and talked about all the other boards I've served on, you know, the zoo board and all those. She said, you're still at minimum wage. You add them all in. So.
Well, look, the boards I serve on are free, so I might need to definitely look at that list.
Yeah, I'm Perry. I'll send you the name of the company.
Okay. And I definitely get it out to the brothers, and
okay.
you know, and definitely get it out to them. And guys, like I said before, it's so important that we have this kind of outlet, because you know we don't have this, and I'm gonna tell you, it is hard. And Dr. Lynn, maybe you can attest to this, and other brothers as well. It's hard being an African American male in today's society, trying to live up and provide for your wife and your family with all the things you have going against you. I mean,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like every time you think you got one step in the door, you get knocked back 2 or 3 steps, even in today's time. And this is not something back in the 60s or the 70s, but things I've even experienced here in 2020 when I've tried to do stuff, and you know, you think you're doing something good, and the man, I'm gonna say, not using the race card, but it's always some way they find to push you back to where you have to work twice as hard to be average when you know you're that much better.
That's why I said swing for the fence all the time. Just swing for the fence. Yep. Yeah.
So I mean, I hope everybody watching this was able to gain, you know, some great knowledge, because you really dropped some great knowledge on us today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do so.
So when I get this book out called Country Boy Wisdom, Perry, I want you to, I'm gonna pass out a lot of free ones.
Well, look, I'm gonna be your marketing tool right there. That's what I do. So I'm gonna be able to help you out with that one at no cost. But definitely, I definitely make sure we help get it out. Is there anything else, fellas, that you guys want to talk about today? I guess that's it. So we had a great first series. I loved it. Next Thursday, same time, we will have a new guest. We'll be doing the same thing. Hopefully we can have Dr. Lynn back with some more of his friends that were supposed to come on earlier. But I want to thank everyone for participating. If you guys, I guess we could go around the room or around the Zoom and everyone get their final thoughts. Shemaine, let's start with you.
Well, thank you, Perry. My final thought is thank you once again, Dr. Lynn, both Sams, and young Sam, Mr. Goody. Thank you very much, because you have a great point there. We all, you know, a lot of rap is looking at the glitter of it, and you can't necessarily look at the jewelry that's glittering, because the true worth of a man is the way he shows himself. So if that's what you're projecting, that's what people are going to see for a long time. You may lose a chain or you may lose a car, but if you're delivering a message of self-worth, which a lot of our color don't feel as though we're worthy, that's a step in the right direction. And thank you, Mr. Sam Pugh, for joining us and giving us a platform and things like that, joining us. Thank you guys. Thank you all, gentlemen, for getting on this call, a Zoom call, because it's important that we share with each other and we keep lifting each other up.
Awesome. Mr. Waddell?
Well, again, thank you so much, Dr. Lynn. Your words have been gems, wisdom, nourishment. this call was definitely more than what I expected. I'm certainly glad to be a part of it. A lot of the things that you said, Dr. Lynn, are in direct contrast with my life and things that were taught to me. My mother always told me, hey, if you can't be like Jesus, be like yourself. She always downplayed mentors. So for that reason, they were never important to me. But just hearing you and reading your profile and hearing how important mentors were for you, that altered my perspective, even though I'm 43 now. So thank you for that, man. I'll certainly incorporate some of these things in my daily walk, and appreciate your time and the light you've shed.
All right. Mr. Brown, you were next.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Lynn, to you and what you do, because that's that nugget that my brother spoke about. That's a sojourner truth nugget. That's the light that we need to have as African American men. And as you said, from going to a colored bathroom to a situation now that we're incorporated in the same space, your march on Washington is our Black Lives Matter.
All right. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
That means a lot to talk to someone who went through that. My parents went through the civil rights movement. And the one thing that they did tell me is when you go anywhere, you present yourself as if you got some home training. Yeah. That's the one thing I can hear him saying it now. That resonates true from your era to our era to where we are for the future. And without those nuggets, man, we wouldn't be able to see that light. So thank you for what you've done. And thank Sam, again, another opportunity. Perry, thank you for an opportunity to share in this room. You gentlemen are awesome. And one other thing for my Greek brothers, it's not about the color that we wear. It's what we do for our community. It doesn't matter whether you pledge Kappa Alpha Psi or Phi Beta Sigma. It's the fact that we do things on the shield. And y'all know exactly what I mean when I say that. We do things on the shield because it's important for people to understand where we are. So thank you again.
Yes, sir. Awesome. And real quick, Dr. Lynn, she's blowing me up. Miss Ovila Glover wants you to know she's watching and she wants to say hello.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Pugh, you were next.
Okay, I want to say thank you a lot for allowing me to be a part of the show. For those that missed the beginning, it will be airing on Fox this on the 14th at 11 a.m. Fox 57. So y'all make sure y'all tune in. And I just want to say thank you. It's an honor. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for allowing us to partner with you on this, giving us that platform. Sam Goody.
Yeah, and I'd just like to thank you, brothers, for being a positive image for the community, because we need to see that, and for just dropping wisdom, because we need to hear that. So I appreciate this, and I will be watching the replay so I can take notes on what Mr. Lynn was saying, because he was dropping gems. But thank you, guys.
Awesome. And we're looking forward to that video.
Oh, yeah.
And any other music as well. I want to get some more music as well.
Okay.
And before we go to Dr. Lynn, I'm just going to say, I want to really give a shout out to my brothers who, when I put this in the chat, I didn't know where it was going to go, but, Shemaine and Donovan, you guys stepped up and you're making this more than what I really experienced, what I thought it would be in the first place. I'm like Donovan almost. Dr. Lynn, you have blown me away with what you've done today. I was more so looking at, American history is told by the Black experience, but never could I have imagined your Black experience was so powerful and your words would have meant so much to us. So, it's very important for us to see positive. We always see the negative. We always hear the sad stories. We always hear about what goes down, but to hear the positive experience of someone who actually has made it, that gives us hope. I mean, older the guys are here, I believe that we are actually motivated by the words you're giving us. And so I want to end it with you. So now I just want to say, I want to end it with you and thank you so much for participating tonight.
Thank you. This has been fun. And for me, this gives me and my generation, again, passing that torch, it's going to be in good hands. That torch is going to be in good hands. So thank you so much. And there's a pastor on there. And I always like to, and since I did Marketplace Minister, could Pastor Brown do a benediction?
Thank you. I'm not quite a pastor yet. I'm working on that. But I will certainly do that for everyone that is here. Let us take an opportunity to go to God together as brothers and as men and say thank you for this opportunity that we had today. it is often that we come together for the purposes of just being able to be a sojourner truth for someone that is watching. Another young African-American male and female are seeing brothers lead. And we only lead because God has placed it there. And we thank you for the opportunity, for his blood, for his dying on the cross, and for eternal peace. But the souls that are here say amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sam.
Man,
Brothers,
Bye.
you have a blessed night, and everybody in Facebook, thank you for watching.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
tune in. Make sure y'all
Yeah.
tune in next week now.
Yeah,
All right.
Will do.
February 14th.
Gotcha.
take care,
Thank you.
guys.